Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning, right?
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Yep, it's a beautiful Thursday post-elections morning.
Yeah, it's a little slow morning for a lot of us.
Yeah.
But of course, it is a time for us to be able to do a recap of all that happened yesterday and look at what's happening for today. And speaking of today, let's talk about our weather.
And we have our forecaster, Angelia Guy, on the line. Good morning.
Morning.
Right, how are you doing?
Good, you?
Great. Let's talk about the weather. So what type of a general situation are we looking at?
Okay, we're continuing with mainly fair and warm weather as the past couple of days.
Okay, and the 24-hour forecast?
Okay, we're expecting skies to be mostly sunny today and partly cloudy tonight, with little or no rainfall. Mainly fair and warm weather should persist.
All right, sounds good. Now let's talk about our winds.
Okay, the winds today will be light and variable, blowing generally under 10 knots, and then tonight they will blow generally from the east and southeast and still very light under 10 knots.
Yep. And our temperatures?
Okay, high temperatures today will peak near 88 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 93 inland, and about 80 in the hills, similar to yesterday. And then tonight, temperatures will fall to about 74 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 66 or 63 inland, and about 60 in the hills.
Okay, now let's talk about our outlook as we get closer to the weekend.
Okay, mainly fair weather should prevail for the first part of the weekend. It might become a bit cloudy and on Sunday.
Okay. Well, Angelia, thank you so much for that update.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
Thank you, too.
All right. So that sounds very hot.
I know.
That's what it sounds like.
Might be. Oh well, it is a long weekend, so it might be a good time to go to some place where you can swim. So.
Yeah, we do have 2 more days to get to before the weekend, today and tomorrow. But yeah, you know, the winds are dropping just a bit, so do keep that in mind as you get your day started. And with that, we're going to get into some motivation, and that means it's time for Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Speaking our truth may involve risking rejection, but when we allow ourselves to follow the flow of life, we are supported. As children, most of us learn that honesty is better than dishonesty, and we may not question this beyond whether or not to do what we're told. As adults, however, we can go deeper to examine our choices as investments of energy with predictable risks and returns. When we speak the truth, we affirm what already is. Speaking and living our truth may involve risking, among other things, the possibility of rejection. But when we allow ourselves to follow the flow of life, we are supported. We can then use our energy to cultivate physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and to create our dreams rather than leaving ourselves too drained to even maintain our existence. Today, we can make honesty our choice in every interaction, bringing the nurturing power of the universe's energy into our lives to bring positive, lasting results.
Well, that was a powerful one, I think. And it's one that I think that several people can relate to when, you know, we're maybe afraid of rejection or maybe afraid of being judged for something that we either downplay it or we don't bring it up, or we can be nervous to talk about it in front of people. But I think that, like, if you listen to what the eye opener says, you realize that, like, when you do, like, actually choose to be honest and, like, live your truth, as it says, the burden is lifted, and the sense of freedom that you get is so great. And I think that always, when you think about something like this, that when you're honest, and people's reactions will really show you, like, who they really are.
Yeah.
And, you know, you may think that, oh, I don't want to lose this person. And you're like, well, if they're not going to accept you, or if they're going to judge you for something that is, you know, part of who you are, for example, then maybe that person doesn't need to be in your life, or maybe they're not who you thought they were. And I think that that's why this type of a message is really great to send out, because, you know, when you're honest about stuff like that, about, you know, anything it could be, it's really important to express your feelings, because the opposite route, it really only takes a toll on you when you keep things in, and you know, for the sake of other people. And then you're also not giving them the benefit of the doubt also, if you're not, like, completely honest with them, because you think that, oh, well, maybe they might not take this the right way. Well, you know, give them a chance. You never know how it could go.
Yeah, sometimes we conjure up in our head an idea of what the reaction will be, especially if you have to be vulnerable and honest in a particular moment. And I just kept thinking as I read it, you know, yes, there's a lot of fear in being honest with people about anything. And the fear of rejection is one that is absolutely real. But then, what is the joy or peace that comes from accepting a lie, or living in a space where you know you're not being completely honest? And so, you know, when you look at it, if you put it on a scale and weigh it out, it clearly, you only have more to benefit from being more honest about how you feel, about who you are, and living by that truth.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you just have no filter and just say whatever on your mind, because that's the opposite extreme. Because some people just have no filter, then they don't have a sense of
you don't want to be hurtful.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to, you know, you want to use discretion or tact or whatever. And if it's something about you that's, you know, fundamental or something that you really, like, let's say, have a problem with, right? Because a lot of times, like, you know, whether it's personal, whether it's even in the workplace, we have things that bother us and we don't address them, and we're not honest about how we feel about them, and that sort of thing builds up, and it manifests in ways that, like, you know, people can start to become passive aggressive, or you know, and we've been in situations like that where you know that something is on somebody's mind and they're not saying it, but it comes out in their actions. Or it comes out in their behavior. And, you know, you could save a whole lot of that frustration and drama to both parties if, you know, you choose to be honest about how you're feeling. And then, you know what, even if you don't get the desired result, or you at least, maybe you might get to a middle point, you know, expressing.
Or you brought some clarity to the situation.
Or at least you, like, let that burden go. That, you know, at least you're not holding it in, and you're not just sitting there and suffering in silence. But So.
That's what when you talk about not being brutally honest or being hurtful towards people, I was thinking of the reference to children and their honesty men. You know, when you ask young kids certain questions, you got to be prepared for that response. But. You know, I think this is always something that we, as we get older and as we have more experiences, that we must learn to be able to adapt to. It's not easy. You know, those fears don't automatically dissipate. In fact, as you get older, the consequences and the risks probably get higher. But it's a practice. It is exactly that. It is a practice. You have to do it and do it more often and learn the best times to be honest and how to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are the things you learn along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great for you to say that, because that's definitely true. Because whatever you learn from the previous experiences is what you can apply to the future ones. So.
All right. So that is our eye opener for this morning. And let's start to get into it. Yesterday was Of course, another election. We joked about it on the panel and that just internally here. Felt like we just did it yesterday. But it has been only 3 months since the general election. And we saw everybody going, or residents in municipalities, in the 9 municipalities across the country, heading back to the polls. What was your day like?
Well, it's interesting. It was really interesting for me because, actually, first of all, I live, because I don't live in the city, so I didn't get to vote personally yesterday. But I was, because I work, I was driving around just to see, especially like when I came down in the morning, just to see, because, you're used to that sort of energy for elections. And then in the morning, I found things were quite slow. And I also saw like the commentary about it, maybe on social media, and some people were saying, in the early hours of the election, they're like, the turnout is low at this time. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And then I started, and I was somewhat expecting that, especially like early in the morning. It's not a holiday like the last one. So I was thinking, people had work, and so it would pick up in the afternoon and closer to the times that the polls closed, and it did. Yeah. And I think that any election is always exciting on some level, especially because we have been talking about the municipal elections a lot on our show, and we've been introducing you guys to the mayoral candidates from each division. Yeah. So I was also looking at some of the coverage countrywide, and it was great to see, how people were feeling, what was happening on the ground yesterday. And I was keeping up with everything on social media as well.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we have learned is that there's certain patterns to how we vote, and it changes, it shifts ever so slightly. Definitely, if there's a holiday, if there are 2 elections taking place on the same day, and when it's a vote for something like the referendum, clearly that had a different pattern as well. Yesterday, it really seemed like it was going to be a dismal turnout early in the morning. In fact, the Elections and Boundaries Department, while they haven't released the official results, they updated the total country voter turnout. Last night, we were looking at something around 57%. Okay. This morning, the overall turnout for the country, and again, it's still unofficial, is at 55, which is much lower than the last municipal, which was at about 60. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And that's interesting. And as you said, there are a lot of factors which would have contributed to that. Mm-hmm. But one of the ones that I kept hearing, or that we keep hearing, especially on social media, we keep talking about voter fatigue or election fatigue. And it's interesting because, of course, it does come right off of the heels of the general election 3 months ago. Yeah. And again, we can't always forget that we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, so that certainly had a bearing, I think, on some of the numbers as well.
And we saw such a spike after the last election. Mm-hmm. I think some people would have had that concern. The lowest voter turnout was actually in Belize City. Mm-hmm. And again, this is the unofficial numbers from the Elections and Boundaries Department. For Belize City, the total, I'll do quick reset in case anything changes, is at 46.41%. So that's the lowest across the country, which would explain why people like us who drove around or took a look around here, we were seeing the lowest turnout here. While if you go to municipalities like Corozal, for example, they had a 72% voter turnout. San Pedro, yes. 69. So they were definitely 2 of the highest voter turnouts in the municipal elections yesterday. And whether it was voter fatigue, and we definitely encourage you, if you're at home, jump on Facebook and tell us your reasons why, and why you maybe chose not to vote, especially because clearly not all voters chose to participate.
True. Yeah. And actually, and if you did, you can also tell us why, especially if you every vote is individual and it's important. And I think that if you chose to support perhaps like an independent or somebody who you didn't think was going to win, but you wanted to show your support, you can also come and tell us why, because I think that it's also a very important part of the democratic process.
Yeah.
I was also interested to see that we had some independent or third-party candidates gain some ground in some areas as well. That was interesting down south in Punta Gorda.
In Punta Gorda,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's super interesting, and as we consider how that might impact future elections and the whole political system, because we're very used to like many other countries in the world that where there's two major parties, and then there are independents or smaller ones, but and we're used to them not having that much or gaining that much political mileage. But it seems that might be changing.
And not only that, as the results came in last night, there wasn't a whole lot of time to kind of dissect or look at some of the major changes. That the results in Punta Gorda, especially with the gains made by the third party, one of the things that we know happened just within this past year is that there are a number of issues that made it to the national level in terms of the attention being paid on decisions being made in Punta Gorda by their town council, which was a UDP council. So those were things that I wonder how much it would affect. How much it would affect us, or how much it would affect the vote as well. But of course, we'd only hear from the voters. But we do have so much more to get into. We're going to be taking a look back at some moments, and we must not forget there was also a by-election yesterday where Elvia Vega Samos was victorious. She's now the new Corozal Bay representative, the first female representative for Corozal Bay. But we have our show to get into. And we're starting off today, Gav.
Yes. We are going to be speaking with the elected mayor of Belize City, Bernard Wagner. Of course, on Tuesday, we spoke to Mayor Wagner when he was still the incumbent candidate, and he was sharing some of his expectations for the big day yesterday. And, luckily enough for him, he was victorious. So we are going to be speaking to our own mayor because, of course, we are located in Belize City. So he's open your eyes as mayor for right now.
All right, and then we move into a recap of some of the moments from yesterday. We'll take a look at some of the results and some of the speeches by the winners after the election. So we'll bring that to you in the second part of the show. And then we close off bringing it back to some of the big issues that we're looking at. The vaccination rollout has started, and yesterday the Ministry of Health reported that over 400 persons have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. So we're going to be talking to
we're going to be talking to some of the frontline workers, and the two of which were the first to actually get vaccinated. So we're going to be speaking with head nurse Casilda Bowman, who is the head nurse in the COVID unit, as well as Dr. Eric Bradley, who is, of course, the head of internal medicine at the KHMH and has also been working in the COVID-19 unit.
Yeah, and we do want to make note of the fact that today is also a big day for other news. There is a meeting taking place at the adjacency zone between the Foreign Minister of Belize and the Foreign Minister of Guatemala. And while perhaps the topic of Belize-Guatemala relations hasn't been on the forefront as it was maybe in 2018, there's still a lot to discuss there, and that's coming up today. So it's a big day, and we'll have all of that for you in our newscast tonight. But we're going to take our break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to the re-elected mayor of Belize City, Bernard Wagner. So please stay tuned.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are are stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Es un hecho que puedes obtener servicios ilimitados con Smart. ¿Cansado de que se corte la línea cuando más necesitas estar conectado? Es un hecho que cuando te suscribes al plan de Smart Plus, obtienes llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Y también es un hecho que te puedes suscribir con un grupo de 5 miembros al plan Smart Share y hasta 40 miembros al plan Smart Enterprise para llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Smart tiene los verdaderos planes ilimitados. Es un hecho. Sé Smart y vive de forma Smart.
And we're back. And if you're joining us now, we are just getting our first conversation for this morning started. Now, in the weeks leading up to yesterday's election, we have been giving you our Meet the Mayoral Candidate segment. This morning, we are going to shift things around and we're actually going to do a Meet the Mayor. So,
there you go.
Of course, we are now going to be having a conversation with the newly or re-elected Mayor Bernard Wagner, who is the Mayor of Belize City. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Gavin. Good morning, Marlene. It's great to be here again. My voice is a bit hoarse, but we'll get through this together, right?
Yeah, for sure. I know we understand completely. So, and thank you for being here, and congratulations, of course, on your victory. And so, why don't we just start by talking about yesterday's events, and we can start with let's start in the beginning of yesterday. What was it like for you and your camp, starting out early in the morning as the polls opened, getting people mobilized? What was your feeling as election day started yesterday?
Yeah, again, before if you would allow me, I just want to thank the voters of Belize City, all the voters that came out yesterday in the Belize City area to vote for our team. I believe it's the best team, it's the best choice. I also want to thank our party leader and Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable Johnny Briceño, as well as our Deputy Prime Minister. I want to thank all the area representatives and all their teams and all their machinery, because we relied heavily yesterday on those area representatives' machinery to get this job done. And when we started in the morning, we started a bit sluggish, a bit slow, and I wasn't worried about it. I had always looked at the trends in municipal elections. At municipal elections, always you'll never see that rush like you would see in a general election where 200 to 300 people hit the polls early in the morning. You would normally see a consistent flow of voters throughout the day, and one by one, those numbers will tell a tale at the end of the day, and it did, based on what I've been hearing and on the figures coming in, that we are close to right around the average for city council elections in Belize City. I really want to thank all the voters that came out to really fight against all the implications of this COVID. It takes a lot for a voter to get out there as well during the COVID. It was not a holiday. And so I want to first start by thanking our voters in the city.
All right. And you said that the morning was pretty slow, but that didn't deter you. So what gave you that feeling of confidence, even though you confidence that you would still win, even though you saw that sort of a low, steady turnout?
The main thing, we knew that our machinery was working, and we knew that our voters was coming out. We can't control what they do on their side. We can only control what we do, and that is bringing out our voters. And we saw that our machinery was working. The amount of, when we were on the campaign trail, we knew the responses we were getting, the positive response. So it was just a matter of time, and people will take their time on a non-holiday event like this. So we knew at the end of the day that the figures would pan out.
Yeah. So what we are seeing so far from the elections and boundaries is somewhere around 40%, a little higher than 40% with voter turnout. Of course, these are, we keep on saying it's unofficial numbers until they tell us. So I think the indications are at 46.4%, that it was a little bit lower than what you saw in 2018. From your mind, though, what are some of the reasons why you think people didn't come out to vote?
Again, the main thing when I look at, Marlene, the voter fatigue, that was a key role, given the high that the elections of November 11th took on the toll of its people, because that election was a long drawn-out election where the sitting government stalled, and then COVID was still around. It still is, and people just were. It was hard to crank up the voter machinery again after that November 11th election. Even us at the municipal level, we had a late start. In mobilizing. We had to go to convention. That convention was held about, I believe, just 5 weeks ago. And so when we hit the road, it was a plan mapped out to cover most of the area in the city. We were unable to hit all the zones, and people prefer to have that one-on-one discussion with you, that you come to their house and you ask for their vote. Yeah. Unfortunately, we were unable to hit all the homes, and so even that played a big role in some of the lowering of the voter turnout this time around.
Yeah. Now, when you look at your campaign, some of the things that you campaigned on as why you would be the best candidate to be reelected, you talked about your experience. You talked about the capacity to be able to maintain staff even with the devastating economic fallout of COVID-19 and several other things. What do you think was the point that really resonated with people?
The point that really resonated with people is the fact that that we battled, really faced the pandemic and never falter. And while this may hold true for all the other municipalities, the fact of the matter is that in Belize City, where we had 460 staff, and us really charting that course and navigating those rough waters, making sure the garbage get picked up, making sure that we cut the grass, that we were there for our staff, taking care, our social infrastructure of the elderly, the homeless, and those type of things really hit home. At the end of the day, Marlene, people not concerned, like I was telling on our station last night, that people needs are different, and Marlene, even for you, your needs might be that I like to drive on my street decent, and that's our responsibility of the city council, and we hold that dearly. But in other neighborhoods, the needs are different, and the needs is about putting food on my table. And so when the pandemic came and we had to reprioritize how we spend the resources, instead of dealing with the streets, we started to deal with pantries, we started to deal with giving COVID boots. We did a lot of social work during that time to fill the gaps that were left unfilled by the government in power at that time. And so that in itself helped us tremendously on the path. When we campaigned, people told us that, Mayor, we no got the resources. We don't really battle for 3 years under the UDP, and we never cry, we don't flinch. And that resonated with people that they saw that we tried our best with the limited resources we had. I even had discussions one time with one of the past mayor, Zenaida Moya, and she always tell me, say, Mayor, your experience as a mayor is similarly to mine, given that the fact that I won, when she won, it was our party that was the government, and she had to battle. So she always look at me and say, we have the same experience as a mayor, and we never flinch, we never back down, we don't cry. Many a times you see mayors come out and they get in the seat and they face all the bills and the obligations that you have to face every day, and they then come on the media and we can't do this. But we never flinch. We just did with what we could do, and we even achieved much more than we could have achieved under a PUP government. And so we are excited now that we can now serve under a PUP government, and this will make us a better council, right? The mere fact that we have learned how to have the taxes work for the city, any sort of plus or addition given to us by the government would be what they call gravy. So we look forward to working along with our central government.
November 11th taught us some really important lessons, and we saw very clearly that after the resounding win by your party, that people had very high expectations as to what would be accomplished and how quickly. Many can assume that is the same expectations, that it's the same expectations that are going to be placed on the PUP councils that have been elected yesterday. How do you manage those expectations, understanding the full reality of still being in a pandemic, still being an economic crisis, and just the leverage that central government is capable of allowing at this point?
Yeah, and it comes right back to the fact that we have lived it already, Marley, and we have been able to manage those expectations because we gone through it already. When we won in 2018, that was the first win in the city for a PUP council for close to 15 years. And so we have already had that experience on how to navigate those expectations. And we know now this time around that those expectations will be there again. Mm-hmm. Or people, every day when we campaign, are concerned about jobs. And that is why we at the City Council never once laid off any of our workers during the pandemic. But there is this expectations out there again that we want jobs, and we must, as a council, we must, as a central government, begin to really look hard at ensuring that our people in the city and our people across this country have meaningful employment.
And of course, now that you have been re-elected, well, actually, before we get there, why don't we talk a little bit about the rest of the slate and talk about the support perhaps that you saw them receiving and them getting, and your feeling about moving forward with your entire team.
Yeah, again, being on the ground yesterday, and remember, 6 of these people are first-time councillors, and so experiencing that for the first time, you could have seen some of them a little bit nervous, but they stood tall. I visited Kaya in the Mesop area, and Kaya is a person that gets the work done. I saw Kaya in the back of a pickup truck with a voter in the wheelchair, and she's sitting in the back of that pickup truck. She's a worker and she get the work done. I saw Albert Van, senior in our group, walking and pacing in front of YWCA. Edmond Kwan working behind Port Loyola. The young Diane Kenya, first time facing this type of rush and people coming, looking and seeking, and she's sitting there in the College Division where the leader of the opposition sits as well. And so it was really pleasing to me. I saw Stefan Hamilton very early in the Albert Division, and she was very upbeat, walking and pacing the Albert Street, bringing out voters. I met also during the course of the day with Alan Pollard. He's very well experienced now, as well as Natasha, Mike Novello, and Javier Castellanos. All of these people have learned through this process, and we continue to learn. We'll never say that we know everything. Even me, I never tell people I know everything. I just continue to learn and learn from my experience. Experience is the greatest teacher, as they say, right?
Well, that's a great point. Let's talk about what you have learned, even acknowledging the gains you were able to make in your first term. But what were some of the weaknesses that you can now identify that you plan to adjust in your second term?
One of the main things on the campaign trail is that we found sometimes is not the messaging from the resident not getting back up to the mayor, Marlene. That is a weakness. When we campaign, that many a times residents would come to City Hall to have a discourse with the mayor, short discourse, no long meeting, but just wanted to run something by the mayor, and that message is not getting up to the mayor, and I really plan on ensuring that this city council and myself take care of the needs of those residents. We want to put in place a system where needs of the residents, if a resident wants to see me, there's a system in place how he or she goes about it. I also want to encourage my new councillors to spend more time in their constituents, having meetings. Like I told them in one session that, listen, you have a whole month. The only full-time person on the job is myself, right? You all have an entire month. Out of that month, you should be able to spend at least minimum 3 days out of the week in your constituency, looking at the drains, looking at abandoned lots, looking at which property need to be cut. If there is a pothole in your constituency, you take a note of it and you bring it to the caucus, you bring it to the city administrator. But let us work as a cohesive unit, and let us be accessible to the residents, that the messaging from the residents reaches the top.
So let's talk about some of the plans moving forward. Of course, number one on that list is how you are going to finance the work for your second term. You know, I think when people talk about the economic fallout, we're thinking just of perhaps how businesses have been struggling, and they have, and you rely on them for taxes. But also when you look at how the tourism collapsed, that was a direct impact on Belize City Council as well, as you were able to previously get a cut from arrivals as well. So let's talk about what's your plan now, especially through what is still the ongoing pandemic.
Yeah, again, we continue to navigate that territory. We feel that we have a handle on it. We feel that by us creating a local economic development, that where our local economy is thriving, which is as it is right now, we want to give breaks on trade license. We did that with the 15% discount on trade license. We also did discounts on property taxes. We also want to look at identifying new revenue streams. What has happened here, Marlene, is that the council essentially run on in the neighborhood of $24 million budget per year for the Belize City Council. And so that has worked for us over the past 2 years. And if not for the COVID pandemic, we would have been able to operate within the confines of that figure. As your city grows and it needs, and there becomes this need for further infrastructure, there is this great urban sprawl happening all across the city, where unplanned development are happening in the Gungulungs, in the Jane Ushers Boulevard, in the Freetown Division. These areas are now being expanded, and the people want infrastructure. And so the council can no longer sit back and say, we can't get to putting in streets for those people. And at the same time, the existing streets, people that live on those existing streets want service as well. So it has become tough for the council, but we have the resolve to get through this. What we do plan is and it's in our manifesto, is what we call a city lotto, where the city will now put together a city lotto, and we have done the analysis, we have done the figures, we have done the report on it, and we are seeing where we could generate significant sums of money from this city lotto. But it will not only go to funding some of our projects, but it will also fund many of our social projects, those projects in terms of education for residents in the city, as well as ensuring that a part of the funds are there for social assistance for our residents of our city. As you may rightfully know, that the existing bond floated by the previous council has been significantly compromised, given that COVID came and really stopped the head tax and the subvention for one period of time was coming back to the city council. So the capacity at the central bank for us to redeem those bonds when they become due will be compromised. We have already started working on those bonds that are callable. We have essentially like 11 million outstanding. When Darrell Bradley floated the 20 million, we were able to pay off 9 million prior to COVID. So there's a $11 million gap there that we must start to look at refinancing. And so my team and I and our financial advisors are aggressively pursuing those bondholders to really turn those short-term bonds or securities into longer-term bonds. And so we are looking at an entire package, right, in the neighborhood, I believe, close to 25 million, where we will be paying off the 11 million pending, and also pay off the municipal paper that we floated, which was in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 million. And so we'll have a gap of approximately in the neighborhood of 7 million, where we want to look at using that now to do some infrastructure as well in the city. We also looking at parking meters. We believe that the time has come where we need to venture into parking meters. Parking has been a big problem in the city. People have their business establishments, and due to the fact that many of the workers sometimes of other areas just come and park there for the entire day, we believe that has to change. And so we will aggressively pursue parking meters. Of course, it has to be some level of consultation.
I was about to say, you know, that may not be a very popular decision when you're talking about residents having to pay extra just for parking.
Yeah, and it will require consultation, it will require legislation, I believe, but the Mayors Association, this has been on the table for the Mayors Association for quite some time, and I met with the minister about 2 months ago, and we spoke about it. It will be on the table, but we have to consult, right, to ensure that we begin to get some order in the city in respect to parking, because that has been one of the big problems in the city. And as we go along that venture, then there will have to be some measure of parking facilities, and you will see many of those abandoned lots that we have beginning to be repurposed into parking facilities for people who require parking.
Now let's talk about some of the bigger issues. You said before the election that you did not sit down to finalize the collective bargaining agreement because you didn't want to put it onto the next elected municipal government. You are now going to be in that lead. How soon will you be meeting to settle the CBA? Yeah,
we will live up to our promise. We want to live up to our promise. We will live up to our promise. I had our team, the aspiring team, signed on to have this counter proposal passed on to the union by the 31st of March, and we will stick with that timeline. And we also will stick with the timeline that we are hoping that during those negotiations of the counter proposal, that we are able to get the CWU agreement in place and signed by the 31st of April. So we are well on that timeline. I'll put together, reconvene a team back as soon as we are sworn in to begin those looking at the counter proposals and ensuring that at the end of the day, we are looking out for the best interests of those staff, not only the union members, but the entire staff of the Belize City Council.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, how do you negotiate long-term financial implications in what is a current crisis that we don't know the end of so far?
Yes, and all of those will be taken into context given the current economic conditions, but it will be taken into context with a view that we do not intend to stay here forever in terms of how the economy is rolling. Our party, our government, and our city council all across this country believe that there's a brighter road ahead, and our negotiations will be in the context of those that we feel that the tide will change, the economy will turn around, but at the same time we have to be mindful of where we stand currently, and we have been meeting by and large all the requirements of our staff given the CWU, and so we don't feel that given their proposal with what we have done quantitatively, we'll have to look at it closely and really sit down and we talk about it, because it's a matter of collaboration and communication and meeting somewhere in the middle to ensure that both the union and both the city council look after the needs of its members. the union in terms of its members, and the city in terms of all its staff.
All right, and let's move on to the other elephant in the room. There is a court challenge. There is a challenge before the court to your eligibility to even run for this election. What are your thoughts on that today?
I can't comment much on that, Marlene, given the fact that it's before the court. All I would say is that in the long run, the court will have its day. But yesterday, the people had its way.
Mayor Wagner, what do you want to say to residents of Belize City about what they can expect from you as mayor for a second term?
What they can expect, again, is transparency. What they can expect is a mayor who cares, right? A city council who cares, a council who will work night and day for them to improve the quality of their lives. We know that things aren't rosy in Belize City, things aren't rosy, but one thing you have is our resolve to work hard for you, to ensure that we continue to rehabilitate streets, maintain streets, cut the yards, turn the city into a modern city where safety, people, and turn the city into a city where there is much to do in this city. We believe that our super sale, we are so eager to get it back off the ground. I think that add life to our city, and we want to expand it in the Mahogany Street area. We want to expand it along the Boulevard area. If you notice, as you drive around the city, we are taking this concerted effort to repaint the railings in the city, repaint because it's simple things, Marlene, that turns a city around. If you keep a city clean, and I think many times people don't appreciate that when you drive into Belize City, the city is clean. When you drive, when compared to New York, I have been in different cities, and when I look at this city, I always say our city is clean. We want to turn the city into a modern city. We want traffic lights where safety for our kids and our pedestrians are the number one priority. When we want to ensure that we have proper and decent roads. When a resident turn on his or her vehicle in the morning and drive down that street, he or she wants to be on a street that is decent, right? But at the same time, people have needs. People want food on their table, and a city council is not only about streets, drains, and garbage. It has expanded to ensuring that our city and city residents have better quality of life. And that is what I want to say to our residents in the city. We will continue to work to ensure that their lives improve during the next 3 years significantly.
Well, Mayor Wagner, we are just about out of time for this segment, so we want to say congrats again and thank you for speaking with us this morning about not only yesterday's victory, but also some of your plans for the future.
Yes, thank you again, Gavin, and thank you, Marlene. We do plan on working very closely with yourselves as we go through these 3 years. I want you to get some of my young councillors on your team and on your show. These are the people you need to highlight, all right?
Oh no, I'm sure that we'll get lots of opportunities in the next 3 years.
Thank you,
Right.
thank you.
And thank you again. And of course, that was the newly re-elected mayor of Belize City, Bernard Wagner. And we are now going to be taking a short break. And when we come back, we are going to be speaking a bit more about yesterday's election and breaking down some of the figures and looking at some of what we saw countrywide yesterday. So please stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Congratulations to our Belikin Poppers Topper winners today. Continue popping those toppers off of Belikin for a chance to win free beer, $20, $100, or $1,000.
Papa Stopper!
Belikin, the beer of Belize.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize,
CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
So class, let's review your homework. What are some of the things that we can do to make sure everyone has a clean and reliable supply of water?
Sir, we should turn off the faucet when using soap to bathe, to wash our hands, and maybe even our cars. This will cut our water bills and save us a lot of water.
My dad says we should keep the area around the water pipes close to our houses clean.
Yes, sir. We should encourage our parents to pay their water bills so the entire village will always have clean water.
Right, class. should not forget to attend water board meetings and add our 2 cents. Make sure everyone has reliable, clean water.
My mom says that 3 young people can volunteer to paint the public water pipe.
So, how do we make sure we will always have reliable, clean water?
Join the Clean Water Revolution.
Get involved today and do your part to keep your water supply clean and reliable.
The Department of Rural Development is working on achieving Goal 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is to ensure access to water and sanitation for all.
Wow. Oh my God, she drunk. No hurry, I got this. Goodness. Oh my gosh, it's the artist.
Being the hardest. The artist. But you had way more than 2 drinks tonight, love, which is a legal limit to drive. What about you? Can you drive?
Well, I was drinking soft drink all night, so I can drive her home. Thanks, Bree. Of course, Tricia, you know I got you. You're my girl.
That's what I like to see. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, because you can't be replaying a real life. Stig says so. Can't be playing a real life.
Hey, Dad.
Hi, Brian. Stop running around the house.
Right now, Dad.
Damn it, Brian! I told you stop it! Can't you hear me? Are you deaf? Are you just playing?
Time out. Your life is stressful, and it is easy to lose your patience. When you feel this is about to happen, take a time out. Harsh words are verbal violence and can be very harmful. They are not forgotten. Offering alternatives and communicating with your child is the best way to build real respect. I'm sorry, Brian. That just had a rough day at work. Can you do something quiet?
Do you want a job?
That's more like it.
This COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
And we are back. And if you're joining us now, we are getting our second conversation for this morning started. And we are continuing our discussion about yesterday's municipal elections. And, well, not only municipal elections, because there was also a by-election held yesterday in Corozal Bay. Yeah. Joining us now, of course, for this discussion and breaking down all the figures, we have Brighton Codd, who was a panelist with Channel 5 yesterday, talking all about the figures. Good morning.
Good morning, Gavin. Good morning, Marlene. It's good to be back on the show this morning to speak about the results.
Yeah. So let's just jump right into it. I know we're starting off with voter turnout, and that's one of the things that we wanted to take a deeper look at.
Right. So if we could take a look at the screen here, the voter turnout for yesterday's municipal election was 55% countrywide. And that's a 2% decrease from last year, it was at 57%. Yeah. However, we thought that it was going to be a lot less than what was the total outcome, because after 1, after 2 yesterday in the afternoon, we saw that the numbers were just slowly trickling into the polls. And so it was definitely a bit of a surprise to see that the numbers actually got to 55%. We were guesstimating 40 to 50%.
Yeah, yeah,
so
and it went above that. But if we look at the votes by municipality, there are some areas that kind of skewed it higher. Corozal, namely.
Certainly, and I think Corozal as well is so high because there was the by-election as well.
Yeah.
So we definitely saw a higher voter turnout in Corozal at 72.15%. Orange Walk is another municipality that usually has a high voter turnout. They had 61.4%, and if we could look at 2018 quickly, Orange Walk had 66.90%, so it's just a minimal decrease. And we have to take into consideration that there was a re-registration process as well. So that could also be another factor into why there is that slight decrease.
Mm-hmm. So we see Orange Walk, and then San Pedro polled really well.
Right.
How does this compare to 2018?
So San Pedro's voter turnout yesterday was 69.22%, and in 2018, their voter turnout was 63.47%. So they actually had an increase in voter turnout in San Pedro.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting stuff to know, yeah.
No, absolutely, and especially when you look at the persons who were actually successful, because if you look party-wise, we know, I mean, of course, it was nationwide, it was a pretty big success for the People's United Party, but even in those areas where we're looking at the figures, those also tell an interesting tale as well.
So we can only, I mean, a lot of this will be from hearing from the voters themselves, but we know Corozal was a very unique case, even though they normally have a high voter turnout, but it was unique because the majority of the voters went out to participate in both the by-election and choosing their representative, as well as their municipal election, choosing their town council. And we must not forget to mention that Elvia Vega Samos was successful as the new representative for Corozal Bay. Of course, she picked up the challenge after the untimely passing of her brother, David Dido Vega. And we have this moment after she was declared, which wasn't declared the winner, but the counting was showing that she was going to be the winner. And this is the moment that we captured last night.
One, a big, let's see if we can get a small comment from her.
So guys, I won't be able to hear you. I'll just move over quickly to Ms. Elvin. Share with us what's on your mind. I know you're in tears. What's the situation?
But I think the ratio definitely. Yes, good night. I am so happy, you know, and at the same time it's a little bit emotional because, you know, all that my brother went through, and you know, I am here to continue his work, and I am so happy that the Corozaleños believe in me, and they have given me this opportunity to represent them, and I plan to represent them well, as much as they deserve to be represented. You know, but first I must thank the good Lord above, because as my mother always said, Elvie, once you have God in your life, He's at the center of your life, everything else falls into place. You know, I have to thank the big one up there, God. And I must thank the party as well, Honorable John Bisenyo, for giving me that support. I must thank other ministers that came and supported me, walked with me during the campaign trail. I must thank Honorable Kareem Musa as well, who was there with me from the get-go, from the beginning. You know, I am so appreciative for that. But most of all, I need to thank as well the machinery. You know, the machinery was out there working from the beginning, you know, from the morning to the last second. And the people of Corozal Bay, you know, the people of Corozal Bay was my driving force here. And I thank them for believing in me. And the work is beginning now. The work starts now to represent them the way they truly deserve to be represented.
Elvie, you also made history.
Yeah, of course, being history as the first female representative for Corozal Bay.
What an inspiring and beautiful story, especially at the beginning of Women's Month.
Yeah.
just inspirational.
All right. So that was a part of what we suspect played a role in the high voter turnout in Corozal. Other areas that we're looking at right now, Brighton?
Yeah. So if we take a look at Benqueviejo del Carmen, their voter turnout was 61.78%. And interestingly, Benqueviejo del Carmen has not gone blue since 2003. From 2003 to 2018, they have been United Democratic Party Town Council. And so there was a flip yesterday in Benqueviejo del Carmen. In 2018, the voter turnout for Benqueviejo del Carmen was 66.9%.
Yeah.
So we definitely saw that there was a slight decrease there as well. However, not significant to the extent that we could say people were not interested or disinterested in taking part in the elections yesterday.
And it's super interesting that you say that, because then it does show that there was a pretty good amount of people who actually did flip their votes.
Yeah.
And because normally you would think that the lower the turnout, perhaps the parties have their own faithful and they go out to vote. But clearly in a situation like this, where the UDP has been in power for so long, to see those sort of numbers come in clearly shows that a lot of people did change.
Right, and that was kind of the energy that we were getting from over the weekend when I was reaching out to some of my colleagues in Benqueviejo and San Ignacio and Santa Elena. They were saying that it's going to go blue. However, something very unique happened. The mayor, Earl Trapp, he was reelected and won in San Ignacio, and one councillor from the UDP slate. And interestingly though, that means one of two things. One, he was the more popular candidate, or two, the people were comfortable and confident in his ability to execute the job in that municipality.
So I want to go to San Ignacio, because I think that's definitely one of the big stories for today. But we do want to say that with Benque breaking a UDP leadership in their municipality since 2003, you said. So the new mayor-elect is Jorge Antonio Rosales, who we got a chance to interview, I believe, last week. And he's a contractor, said he was very eager to step up to leadership because he just felt like there was so much more that could be done in Benqueviejo. So him and his team, they were successful securing what is a major win in that municipality. Moving a bit more inland from the border to San Ignacio, Santa Elena, as you noted. Let's first talk about the voter turnout there.
So the voter turnout for San Ignacio town was 55.59%. In 2018, the voter turnout for San Ignacio was 56.96%. So just a 1% decrease roughly. Definitely what we were hearing from Santa Elena, San Ignacio, was that they were going to go blue, but again, Mayor Earl Trapp was re-elected, and so it certainly means that the people were confident in his ability to conduct the job, but they were probably not so confident in the other councillor candidates to be able to execute the job. And that's what democracy is all about. You go to the polls and you cast your vote.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because it's not, perhaps we don't readily think about it in the context of elections like these, but each councillor is elected individually. And so, our inclination is to think that people generally vote one way down the line either way, but clearly that wasn't the case in San Ignacio and Santa Elena.
Yeah. All right, so in fact, we do have an interview with the re-elected Mayor, Earl Trapp. We'll be getting to that in just a few. Of course, while he has been able to secure the leadership of the town council, he will be working with a mixed council moving forward for the next 3 years. So let's hear what Mayor Trapp had to say after the results were announced.
Mayor Trapp, how does it feel to be re-elected?
Well, it's a great feeling that the majority of the residents of San Ignacio and Santa Elena came out and basically showed their appreciation for my leadership here in the municipality of San Ignacio and Santa Elena. And I, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank the entire residents.
Stop the interview, stop the interview. They had that nice day. Stop the interview for the nice day.
They're just stupid, man. Silly. Anyway, I would like to thank the people. If you notice, we have an audience behind us that are very childish and very disrespectful. This is the type of leadership. This is the type of leadership that they want to display here in San Ignacio and Santa Elena. It's a shame. Ladies and gentlemen, they will not take note of my game. Like I said, I'm grateful to the residents of San Ignacio and Santa Elena for their overwhelming support.
Obviously, there are issues going forward with a mixed slate of candidates from the People United Party and also as the central government. You hear there are calls for an audit. It's not going to be an easy road for you for the next 3 years. Will you stay? Will you resign? What is your intentions,
sir,
facing the challenge?
Sir, I'm telling you, I am a true leader. I am a true leader, and I believe in heavyweight bout. And you know what? This is like one of those heavyweight bout. Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. And this is a knockout for them. I am not scared of anyone, buddy. I have nothing to hide. This will not be any kind of hard ride for me. As the former Prime Minister of Belize once said to me, a good leader dictates from time to time. So no one will tell me what to do, buddy. If I have to dictate, I will dictate to get the work done in this community.
You had it. That was Mayor Earl Trapp, re-elected as of yesterday as the mayor of San Ignacio, Santa Elena. Clearly he was frustrated. There was people chanting in the background, and he will have to work with a mixed council.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that final statement, if I have to dictate, I don't know how well that will work out when many times you need 2/3 majority of your council to vote in favor of you to get certain things passed. And he has only one other councillor candidate that was on his slate that was elected. So that's something to watch.
Well, the people voted, and I think that means they saw something in Mayor Trapp that was important for them. And, we were talking a bit earlier about some of the issues taking place at the municipal level prior to the election. PG, when we get to that, we'll be able to talk a bit more about that. But with San Ignacio Santa Elena, they faced devastating floods, just within the year prior to the election. And one of the things that was very visible was Mayor Trapp's presence on the ground. He was, very early out there doing his assessments, working with people. And sometimes we from the outside who don't live in that municipality, we don't know the value of it. But if you live there and you see your mayor out there kind of taking the lead on things like that, it does stay with you. Certainly. So those are all issues. But of course, that's what the results say. And so that means that the people have the confidence in him.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, so where are we heading next?
So let's go to Belmopan City.
Okay.
Definitely that was one of the races to watch yesterday. And it was a complete blowout in Belmopan City. The turnout yesterday was 53.16%. In 2018, the turnout was 59.51%. So there's a slight 6% decrease of voter turnout. However, the people made it resoundingly clear that they wanted Ms. Sharon Palacio as their new mayor and the City Council 7.
And that's, Belmopan results were interesting for a number of reasons, not only because Belmopan is getting its first female mayor, but also because of the blowout, as you said, because this is another area that where the party changed. And so that was interesting. The race up to it was interesting.
Yeah.
Two of the candidates actually from the major parties were female, and of course we got to speak with them here on the show.
Yeah.
And so it was a very exciting race to watch, and it was interesting, of course, to see the final result with Sharon Palacio being successful at the end.
Yeah.
You know, I think we could deduce now that certainly the energy from general elections transferred or matriculated into the municipal elections for the People's United Party.
Yeah.
Because we certainly saw that some of the areas where there were resoundingly clear wins for the People's United Party reflected the same in certain areas in the municipal elections.
Yeah. You know, and we were speaking about the history being made with Belmopan having its first female mayor. And I can't help but reflecting in our interview with the UDP candidate, Jackie Burns, when she said, even if she loses, she still wins because Belmopan gets its first female mayor. And I think that's just something that will stay with me no matter what. And so there you have it, the first female mayor for Belmopan, the city of Belmopan, Sharon Palacio. All right, so let's head on over to San Pedro.
So San Pedro, the voter turnout for San Pedro yesterday was 69.22%.
Yeah.
And definitely one of the municipalities that saw a higher number of voter turnout. In 2018, the voter turnout in San Pedro was 63.47, so they had an increase in voters yesterday. And especially with the impacts of COVID-19, it was really interesting to see how many people, surprising almost, to see how many people turned out to vote.
Well, see, San Pedro is just interesting because if we go back to what happened in 2018, it was such a close race. And then we also had the re-registration, so we don't know who got added or taken off that list. But the point is that it was a very clear win for Mayor-elect Wally Nunez and his team. And that's also, we were talking about how long they've been under a UDP.
6 terms.
6 terms, yeah. So.
And I think what's also interesting about San Pedro is if you look at perhaps part of the reasons why the turnout was so high and people were compelled to vote, I think a lot of it has to do with the economic situation in the because for both, you know, on the municipal and the general level, I think whatever policy decisions are made impact, well, the whole country, of course, but San Pedro in particular, because they're so, their economy is so dependent on tourism, which of course has been, you know, so adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think that a lot of people are generally pay a lot more attention to politics because of the impact that it has. So I think that may have accounted for the turnout. And of course, people, you know, wanting to see change, people wanting to get involved, and I think that was a pretty significant, or that had a significant results.
Yeah.
So we know that legally there are different duties and responsibilities between the central government and the municipal government, but it's going to be nice to see how the municipal government works with the central government at the political level to try and drive some innovation in these varying municipalities.
Yeah. So, and you know, Andre Perez was the last mayoral candidate for San Pedro town. Of course, he then moved up as the area representative and now is elected as their representative. But let's hear from Mayor-elect Wally Nunez. This was his interview after the results were announced.
Okay. Right now, how are you feeling? Really good. Thank you very much. Thank you, San Pedro. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank God for giving us life and having us here today. I want to thank the entire team. My council slate now, that slate, we're it. That's what we said today. We're not a slate, now we're it, because we have the town councillors, the mayor, and now we also have Mr. Andre as our area representative. So thank you, San Pedro. I want to give a special thanks. I want to give a special thanks to our campaign manager, Mr. Eduardo Aguilar, for bringing victory to us as well. I want to give thanks to San Pedro for coming out and giving us that vote of confidence. We will work for San Pedro. We're here for you. We want to thank everyone. Have a good night. Tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow we're going to the town council and start the work. Our first business will be an audit. Thank you very much, everyone. We're here for you all.
There you have it. That is Mayor-elect for San Pedro Town, Wally Nunez. And we were commenting that he's not new to politics. In fact, it was, what was the year that they had the split council?
I think it's 2012.
All right. There was one PUP councillor who was victorious on that slate, and that was Wally Nunez.
Yeah, and so clearly that shows both then and now that people do have a certain level of confidence in him. And, you know, the votes reflected that. And so now San Pedro having a People's United Party council shows, you know, clearly that he, not only they have confidence in him, but also his leadership ability to lead the team and, of course, to manage the municipality of San Pedro Town.
Certainly.
So let's go to Orange Walk Town, Sugar City.
Orange Walk Town had a voter turnout of 61.4%. And interestingly with Orange Walk is that their newly elected mayor was also a former councillor with former Mayor Kevin Bernard, who is now minister. And in 2018, the voter turnout in Orange Walk was 66.92%. So we see that there was a slight decrease. However, in favor of the People's United Party, that energy from the general elections transferred over to the municipal elections. And so we see that a lot of people turned out and supported Mad Bull.
Yeah, and we do know that if you go back historically, they have been a PUP council for the past 3 terms before this election, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that not only that also influenced the vote, I think that if we also go back to the general elections, we know that, of course, the now Minister Bernard was quite a popular candidate in the constituency in the years that he served. But we also can't ignore the fact that now our Prime Minister is from Orange Walk and from Orange Walk Town at that. So a lot of that, I think, favored the People's United Party to win, not only because they've historically been popular in the area, but even if we look at current events, I think that also was in the voters' minds, and I think that assisted with eventually the PUP's successful result.
And if we look at the historical record from 2003 to 2018 in Orange Walk, the stronghold was indeed the People's United Party, except for 2006, where there was a complete flip from 2003 to 2006, where the United Democratic Party got 7 seats, and then there was a split council in 2009, where the PUP had 4 seats and the UDP had 3. And then in 2012, there was just right back to full PUP slate, and then 2015, there was a split again, and now 2018, there was 7 for PUP, and that continued into 2021.
Okay. All right, so moving forward, let's go down south to Punta Gorda.
Punta Gorda, 61.17% voter turnout. Interestingly, with Punta Gorda, I spoke this weekend with one of the councillor candidates, now Councillor Jamal Galvez, and his father ran for the United Democratic Party in 2006 in Punta Gorda, and his uncle ran as the mayoral candidate in 2006, and they were both elected. And so there was a split council in 2006 with his father and his uncle, and now he took up the political challenge, and he ran for councillor, and he was elected. So 61.17% voter turnout in Punta Gorda in 2021, and in 2018, the voter turnout in Punta Gorda was 59.41%. And
Punta Gorda was one of the interesting constituencies or municipalities rather, as Marlene and I were talking about in the beginning of the show, because this was one of the places where we saw a third party gain some ground, which is not usually that, or we don't usually see the numbers like that. So we thought that that was a real interesting feature of that, of Punta Gorda in particular.
Right. One of the things that we would want to see more come from Punta Gorda in the future is more women on the slate.
Yeah.
There were probably 2 consecutive municipal elections, I believe it was 2009 and 2012, where there was 0 women on the slate for both political parties and independent. So we would definitely want to see some improvements there in the future. But congratulations to the PUP slate for securing all their seats in Punta Gorda.
That's right.
That was another flip, right?
Yes, yes. And we were saying before that there were some issues that we saw that took place within the past year, some concerns of well-known areas in Punta Gorda that were sold or being used for commercial purposes that residents really weren't happy with. And even though the current, the outgoing mayor didn't put himself forward for re-election, I'd imagine, or we can surmise, that perhaps that had some impact in what happened there as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move to Dangrigatong.
Yeah.
There was 54.18% voter turnout in Dangrigatong. And interestingly with Dangriga, after getting some feedback from the ground, because I did some little homework over the weekend and I reached out to people and just to kind of pick up on the energy on the ground.
Yeah.
They were saying that it was going to be very close. It was 50-50%, but we now see that the entire script flipped. And they went full blue slate in Dangrigatong as well.
Yeah.
In 2018, Dangriga saw 55.83% voter turnout, 54.18 voter turnout, so just barely under 1% decrease.
All right, and we do have an interview with Mayor-elect Robert Mariano, and so we're going to check that out now.
Well, we are hearing that unconfirmed report is saying that you might have won this municipal election tonight. Talk to us about how you feel hearing that.
Well, like I said to everybody, victory is a very good feeling, and that's the way I feel tonight. Very, very good.
Okay, so what's your give us your take.
What's the next move as of tonight, knowing that you have garnered this victory? Now you have a responsibility to work with and for your people. Now, what is the next move going forward?
The next move is to start to implement the manifesto, because people is looking forward to see that we implement it. We are looking forward to that, so it's important for me to start to implement it as quickly as possible.
Do you have any words for your voters, sir?
Personally, I want to say thank you very much to the people of Dangriga for having the confidence in me. I promise not to let you down. I will do my best and to be one of the best men. And at the same time, I want to say thanks very much to Mayor Humphrey. He has served us for 6 years, and I will reach out to him sometimes tomorrow. And on behalf of the Gambia people, I want to tell him thanks for his service. And I wish him well.
Yeah, there you have it. That is Mayor-elect Robert Mariano from the police department, now holding public office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Marlene, I want to take us over to the screen and just
go
over the strongholds over the years. If we look at 2003,
this is our Samsung Flip that we have been using, courtesy of Full Tech. We want to say thank you for that.
So in 2003, if we could go by municipalities, Belize City was a PUP municipal government. In 2006, that flipped, and then the United Democratic Party held that up until 2015. It flipped in 2018 with Mayor Bernard Wagner, and it continued into 2021.
Yeah.
In Belmopan, there was in 2003 a People's United Party municipal government. in 2006 that flipped, and that was consistent until 2018. And then in 2021, now we have People's United Party slate again.
So essentially, it's all blue with the exception of San Ignacio, where you have a mixed council, and that's 5-2.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's the mayor who was re-elected, Mayor Earl Trapp, as well as one of the councillors.
So we do have one more municipality to discuss. We have Corozal town for the municipal. While we spoke about the by-election, the results came in that Mayor Vellos was re-elected as the mayor there, and we have an interview with him after those results were announced.
Especially my campaigners, they did all the hard work for us. I want to thank the candidates from the United Democratic Party also for allowing us to have a democratic elections and a safe one also without any problems. I want to thank all Corozalinos who came out and vote, regardless of whoever you voted for. Team Rigo, PUP Town Council is here to serve everyone. And I am happy that my good friend Ms. Selvi, honorable now, also came out victorious by a huge margin. And we are ready to work with her, and the people of Corozal have spoken, and they have spoken very clearly, that they love the idea of having a PUP central government and a PUP town council. And I guarantee them that there will be a lot of work being done because there's a lot of work to do. And this is the way we want to keep it in Corozal, PUP, because PUP works.
We got to believe that.
All right. There you have it. That was re-elected mayor for Corozal town, Mayor Vellos.
So Marlene, in 2021, if we could look at the screen here, in 2018, the United Democratic Party won countrywide 41 seats. Yesterday, they only won 2 countrywide. So that was a complete, it's an unequivocal and resounding message that was sent to the United Democratic Party.
And I think, if we listen to, of course, what Mayor Vellos just said, I think that a huge determining factor in the results of this election was, of course, that coming off the heels of the November election, where we saw, of course, a similar sort of huge victory for the People's United Party. I think that was definitely in the voters' minds, even though, like as you said earlier, rightly, the responsibilities of the central and municipal government are different. In people's minds, people say, well, what are the chances, or how will my needs get met? The best chances probably think is, well, if the parties can sort of, if there's one party, and then it should go much smoother. And I think.
Well, yeah, I've heard that quite a bit, and I think that was part of the campaign for the People's United Party. We heard that from quite a few of the mayoral candidates at that time when we interviewed them. And then we heard from the United Democratic Party very often that use this as your 100-day response to the current administration. And it's interesting. I think back to one of the speeches we heard yesterday. One of the few, I must say, if not the only mayoral candidate who actually gave an interview to concede that he lost the election was in Orange Walk with Orlando Castillo. And I think he said some of the things, having spoken to him before the election, where he said that he was just a young person in the town who wanted to see something different and felt that there was more he could contribute, so he joined the electoral race. In his concession interview yesterday, he was very graceful in saying, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. But he also said that, the people, it is very clear that the people are sending a message as to how unhappy they were with the previous administration, and also that they want to give the administration a chance. I'm using my words here. His words were a bit different. So, you know, it's putting things into perspective like that. But the voters did send a message. It is very clear. And what exactly that means, we don't get to find that out unless we talk to them. And that's one of the things that we hope to hear more from.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, what a result like that, you know, both municipal and general show, is that even if you put party aside, change is what people are looking for. Because I was going, you know, if you go back to like some of the places like Benqueviejo, which we were discussing the numbers earlier, clearly shows that a lot of people flip their votes. And it's not just a case of, you know, perhaps people not coming out, but people are actually coming out because, and I think that regardless, I think that people having been under the administration of one party for so long, perhaps they just want to see something new, especially in the wake of the fallout of, you know, the economic fallout from the pandemic.
And you know, in polarity management, this is where we look at how things swing. If you, in democracy, if you have a party in for too long, that's when you see the populace begin to get a bit agitated. They want to see change, and so there's that swing in that poll. So most times, when parties get too complacent in their position, that's when we see people start to vote the other way around. And so many times when parties are complacent, they begin to go down what is called a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle, that is. And then people want to see a more virtuous cycle in terms of how they are being represented. So they swing completely in the polls and they vote completely contrary to what they would have normally sometimes.
And I think it's interesting when you think, and I think our former Prime Minister, Dean Barrow, had once said that it's one of the interesting things that, you know, we always speak about. There's different political issues, but that at the end of the day, that we have confidence that elections, whether they be general or municipal, are generally free and fair. People do get their voices heard. And that at the end of the day, people can talk about a lot of the issues that even surround election day themselves. But, you know, regardless of that, people do make their voices heard. And, you know, it's like a pendulum, so sometimes it does change. So no matter how much resources a party puts into, you know, their whole machinery, getting people out there, I mean, the municipal elections were definitely toned down as compared to the general elections, but we saw so much effort being made on both sides. But at the end of the day, we saw that people voted for change. So I think that you know, our elections do tell a lot.
And, you know, the election is getting past the job interview phase. You've been given the job. Now you got to do the work. So if the mandate is changed, we can only hope for the change. I think voters want to see the change that will come. It was one of the things that I think we asked the Mayor Wagner this morning. It's managing those expectations, but also meeting those expectations. Because if we look at, it's interesting when you hear the idea of aligning central and municipal governments together as a part of your platform. Because let's be honest, if we look at the very same chart behind you, it's been done before. You know, where you had the representative and the municipal body be aligned. I think everyone has to take a reflection to see if that is enough for you to see the change that you want.
And even in the interview yesterday with former Mayor Zenaida Moya, she stated that even though her party was elected in 2008, it did not ease the job that she had to get done.
So this is, of course, just the beginning of 3 years of being able to follow up on the commitments that have been made. But Brighton, we are so grateful you came in to crunch some of these numbers with us. It's my
pleasure.
Doing the early morning shift after the all-day shift. But thank you so much for participating. Congratulations to all the newly elected mayors and councillors across the country. We are going to go ahead and take a break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about the other very big and important issue in this country. We're talking about COVID-19 and the vaccine rollout. So please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that by simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop, it increases your productivity by 26%. And adding a monitor takes it up by 35%. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience with devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands that you can rely on. With collaboration tools such as Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky, your team can stay connected and perform efficiently no matter where they are. Fulltech Systems, your trusted technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Hello? Okay, sure, I'll be there.
Hi, Mommy. When are you coming home? I really miss you.
Hearing the voice of our loved ones can always lift our spirits and make us feel whole again. With Smart's Twice as Nice promotion, prepaid customers who make 5 minutes worth of national calls on Sundays can enjoy 50% off. Top double on all national calls for the rest of the day. Call your loved ones and enjoy half off all day long. Smart, bringing people together.
Research on the impact of COVID-19 infection on pregnant women is limited. Right now, pregnant women are at higher risk of severe illness than the general population. Pregnancy can affect the way a woman's body handles respiratory infections. If you are pregnant, protect yourself against COVID-19. Wash hands frequently using soap and water for at least 40 seconds. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available. Cover cough or sneeze with tissue and throw used tissue in a bin. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces such as doorknobs, counters, phones, and tablets. Practice physical distancing. Work from home if possible. Avoid contact with anyone who has fever, cough, and cold or flu-like symptoms. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth without first washing your hands with soap and water. If you have fever, cough, and feel extra tired, call 0800-MOH-CARE. Help keep Belize safe.
Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, won't even try.
Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try. Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. People die every day, I'm not going with ya. I'ma find my own way, I'm not going with ya. It's okay, I'll wait. Even good people make mistakes. I don't wanna realize when it's too late. Drinking and driving is never safe. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try. Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try.
persons at risk of becoming seriously ill from the flu or the coronavirus, people over the age of 60, persons with medical conditions they already had, such as diabetes or heart disease or conditions that has made their immune system low, such as HIV or cancers. At this time, there is no vaccine or treatment. Serious cases may need oxygen or ventilator support. Be caring and show support for your elderly loved one during this time. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
Yes, and if you're joining us now, we are getting our final conversation for this morning started, and we are shifting gears from politics, and we're talking about the other big issue, of course, and that is COVID-19 and the vaccine. And here to speak with us this morning, we've got two persons who have already received the vaccine and have been frontline workers and been working at the forefront in battling the pandemic in Belize. We've got Dr. Eric Bradley, who is the head of internal medicine at the Carl Heischer Memorial Hospital, and we also have with us Nurse Casilda Bowman, who is the head nurse of KHMH's COVID-19 unit. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start off. How are you guys feeling?
Right?
Yeah. Any side effects?
All right, well, I'll start because Dr. Bradley hesitated, so. Okay. All right, so I'm good. No side effects. I had probably maybe an hour or two of a little bit of aches and pains, and remember I recovered from COVID, so yeah. I think that also contributed to some of the feelings that I was having, and also I felt a little bit of fatigue, but that is not a contribution from the vaccine. All right, so I was fatigued before I got the vaccine. But apart from that, I'm okay.
Yeah, we can hear that in your energy level this morning, Nurse Bowman. How about you, Dr. Bradley?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty fine. Basically, the only symptoms I had was pain to the injection site, which is expected when you get any vaccination. So just soreness at the injection site. In my case, I didn't have any fever, any fatigue, and all vaccines will cause some very mild side effects. It's to be expected. So when persons gets vaccinated, we can expect some of them complaining of headache, obviously soreness to the injection site, generalized malaise, but that's to be expected, and the symptoms are generally very, very mild.
Yeah.
So, I suppose I should ask, let's start with you again, Nurse Bowman. How did you feel about receiving the vaccine before you got it? What were your thoughts leading up to it?
For me, my thoughts leading up to it, it was a privilege to volunteer to do it as an example to show that if I am willing to put my life to show that, it is safe and something that we need to do. I was pretty confident about it. I did enough research. I read about it. I understood what the process of the vaccine was. So I was pretty excited about it. I was excited to lead by example most of all.
And for you, Dr. Bradley?
Well, pretty much the same that Sister Bowman just mentioned. Also wanted to be an example to the Belizean people to show them and that they can see that the vaccine is safe, the vaccine is effective, the vaccine has been studied. It has gone through rigorous studies. I mean, I know when you read social media posts, you see certain posts that people are hesitant or people think that we're being used as guinea pigs. That's the term I see most often. But any vaccine, any medication that comes onto the market has to go through thorough testing. We practice what we call evidence-based medicine. So everything that we use, including vaccines, as the vaccine that we're using right now, has undergone several trials to prove that it's safe and effective. So I do understand the hesitancy that some people might have in receiving the vaccine, but I wanted to set an example to show that, you know what, it's safe, effective. You will have some minor side effects, but it's going to help us a lot in the longer run.
Now, let's put this into perspective. Both of you have been, I mean, when we talk front lines, I think people just, they're very general. But you guys are suiting up in PPEs all day long, every day that you're working directly with patients who are being hospitalized and even requiring intensive care due to COVID-19. Having this been your reality for almost a year, what does it feel like now to be at the point of vaccination?
Well, I mean, for me, I feel like I'm seeing the hope. I'm seeing the light at the end of, you know, that there's I just feel hopeful with the vaccine. I mean, I think that if we all do, you know, recognize that it is important for us to take a stand by taking the vaccine, we may all see the numbers fall, and that is the hope that I see, and the hope that I get in the vaccine being rolled out now.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, what Sister Bowman is saying, getting the vaccine is the right thing to do, and it's also the quickest way for us to go back to some type of normalcy. We know and we understand we will have to live with COVID, but the vaccine will help us to go back to some type of normalcy.
Yeah, but I mean, take us to some of the most challenging moments that you've had in that COVID-19 unit. There were times where the overflow or the surge phase at the hospital had to be employed because you had so many people there who were requiring care.
Yes, that's correct, Marlene. And right now we have an extra tool in our arsenal, right, to help to fight against this pandemic. In the beginning, people were asking, what can we do? So this is something else that you can do besides your physical distancing, besides your mask wearing, besides washing of hands. Now, there is something else that you can do to help us. And what is that? Getting vaccinated when your time comes around.
And, you know, to that point, perhaps it might also be helpful for some of our viewers or some people who might still be having some kind of doubts. Perhaps, Dr. Bradley, you could explain, you know, what exactly a vaccine is, how it works, and what you're actually doing by getting the vaccine.
Okay, well, I don't really want to go very, very technical into it. But basically what the vaccine does, especially the Oxford vaccine that we're getting, or AstraZeneca, first of all, the vaccine, I want to point out, it does not have in coronavirus, right? The vaccine is not going to give you COVID-19, because I think that's one of the questions that many people have been asking. People think that they're being inoculated, being given the virus itself. You're not being given the virus, but the way it works is basically the development of what we call a spike protein that's inserted into a certain vector. So when that gets injected into the body, if someone does come in contact with the coronavirus, if someone does develop COVID-19, then because of this, the vaccine that you've received, you will develop antibodies to recognize the coronavirus and fight against infection.
Yeah. And it's, from all the things that you've seen online or people are asking you, what are some of the misconceptions? And for you to say, Nurse Bowman, what are some of the things that we can clarify?
Yeah, well, we can clarify once again. I do want to stress on this point that the vaccine does not have the coronavirus. Yes, you will have some mild side effects to the vaccine, and that's to be expected. Also want to clarify that it is a vaccine that has been tried, has been tested, and millions of people around the world have received it. I think, well, in Belize, I'm very excited to see by the last report given on Tuesday from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I think we're at 417 persons who received the vaccine. I know at KHMH we started our vaccination rollout yesterday, and about 90 persons were vaccinated initially already yesterday. So it's something highly effective. Also taking into consideration it's something that's free. There's no cost associated to the vaccine. The vaccine will protect you from serious disease and also protect those around you.
Yeah. Well, those were most of the main concerns that I've been hearing so far about concerning the vaccines. And most of the population that I have talked to, they are saying that they want to wait it out. And I'm saying that there's no need to wait it out. It has been tested on millions of people before us. And like Dr. Burley had mentioned before, we are not the guinea pigs, all right? And that is one thing that I have been hearing over and over and over, and one of the things that is very important to highlight also is that, especially from our ministry, and I think most ministries, what we're trying to do is to give you guys such of a maybe a peace of mind by having we observe you for maybe a half an hour to an hour, just to make sure that you feel confident enough to know that we are there in the event that anything does happen. And so far, there has not been any severe reaction to the vaccine so far. And so it's just another reassurance that it's important that it is safe for you to take.
Now going back to, the skeptics and the doubters, there are some people who are still thinking that, not even just about the vaccine, but about COVID-19 itself. There are some who are still saying that, oh, well, I'm healthy, I'm young, even if I get COVID, I'll get over it, it's just a flu. So what would you say to that in terms of the risk factors if you stay unvaccinated then? And perhaps Nurse Bowman, you can start, especially because you've had your own personal experience with the COVID-19.
Yeah, so like my advice to all those who have that's a real misconception. I mean, because when I was COVID positive, one thing that plagued my psyche was who I would have infected, who would I have potentially caused the death. You understand? And so that is what we have to think about. It's not a selfish about, oh, well, I'm young and I can handle it. It is about who I come in contact with that might cause a severe reaction that they may be hospitalized. And so that is what we have to think about. Me getting the vaccine is a point to prove that, a literal point to say, guys, I love you. I love my family. I love my friends. I love my patients. And so that's why I took the vaccine, to keep you all safe.
Yeah, and to follow up on what Sister Bowman was saying right now, COVID-19 can have serious life-threatening complications, and there's no real way for us to know how COVID-19 will affect you, regardless of your age, your race, regardless of comorbidities that you may or may not have. So there's no real way for us to know how the virus will affect you, and getting the vaccine will help ameliorate the spread to friends, to families, to others in the general public. I mean, thankfully, I think the number that was reported yesterday was 8 new cases. Yes, our cases are down, but it takes one person to come in contact with a group of other people for us to have a surge, and that's what we're we're hoping that we don't have another surge. And something that can help protect us from having another surge is that when your time comes around, get vaccinated.
Do you feel like if people would have seen what you've seen in the past year, just the different age groups that are affected, the different severity of illness of the sickness that you've seen, the deaths that you saw, or even just a patient who is gasping for air as they access care, do you feel like if they had been exposed as you have, it'd be much easier for them to make this decision?
Yeah, I think it would, and I think a couple of weeks ago, actually, Isani Caetano did a very good piece when he visited KHMH to show the public, because I know there's COVID fatigue, not like a year ago that everyone was talking about COVID, but people do have to realize that the ICU COVID unit is still open, that we do have patients who are still hospitalized and are still critical. So there are persons who are fighting for their lives still, and you don't only have to think about them, but think about their families also, right? So we're still in this fight.
And what happens now? So it's a 2-dose vaccine. So you took the first dose. How long do you have to wait for your second dose?
It's gonna be 8 weeks.
All right, and
it can be 8. It can be up to 12 weeks. The effectiveness the studies have shown that it's more effective if you wait closer up to the 12th week.
Okay, so that means that you guys have to be extra vigilant over this time, because does it mean that you can still get COVID after the first dose?
Yes, you can.
Yes, so we want to always encourage everybody, even though you may receive the vaccine, to still adhere to all the measures that are in place. Wear your mask, use your social distance, wash your hands. Those are important things that we always have to be mindful of, regardless of getting the vaccination.
And from those of you who work in the COVID-19 unit, is it everyone who is open to getting the vaccine or will get vaccinated?
Well, we are pushing and we're aiming for 100%. And of course, there are some people who are skeptics, who want to wait it out to see. And so that's why we're just trying to get everybody as sensitized as possible by giving them enough information to equip them with the knowledge of what it's about, what to expect, to decrease their fear of getting the vaccine. Yes, and so we definitely want to get 100% of our population vaccinated.
And how are things at the COVID-19 unit currently?
Sorry, repeat?
How are things at the COVID-19 unit currently?
Well, right now we're good. We're seeing a decrease in numbers where our demographics are still older people above 65, 55 to 65. We're seeing that range. But we're seeing a decrease, but that's just in our hospitalization and in our hospital. I'm not sure about other districts. But so we're seeing a decrease, which is good. It's positive, and we want to keep it that way as much as we can. And also the feeling in the unit is you see a little bit of hope, little bit of hope in the staff eyes now. It's not that gloom. It's not as heavy as it was before. Like in the past couple of months, there were times when staff were just overwhelmed by the emotions of seeing on one death after the other. And when I say that, this is like all category of the staff being overwhelmed, and you see a little bit of hope in them now. And so, this vaccine is just great for us, and I'm just hoping and encouraging everybody to go get it. We need it. It's important for us, for our continuation of life.
And a key point here is that, Nurse Bowman, you have had COVID before, yes. And you still got vaccinated. We need to explain the science behind that as well.
Okay. All right. So since I had COVID in November. By February, I have done at least 3 months. And so my immunity the research have shown that there's a natural immunity. So I got active immunity. So that means that I was exposed to the live virus. Yes. So that would say the research shows that it's about 3 to 5 months in which you would have the antibodies in your system. Yeah. And so for people who have had COVID before December, of course, it's safe for them. You don't want anybody who has it after December 4th or so, you don't want to take it too soon. So at least 3 to 4 months after your exposure, before you can take the vaccine, or you should take the vaccine. And I think that if you go anywhere, they will ask you these questions just to make sure that that you're safe. And one of the good things that I must say that with Belize, our vaccination process is very clean and structural. So they won't give you or administrate a vaccine if you're having any flu-like symptoms and stuff like that. So that's something that is important, because if you're sick and then it can probably get worse. So there are certain stuff that are in place to protect people.
Actually, you know, that it's good that you brought that up, because that was going to be my next question. Because as we know, healthcare workers and frontline workers are in the first group of people who are eligible to receive the vaccine. But in that group also are persons older than 60, or people who have serious conditions. So I think a lot of people who either themselves or they may have a loved one who fits into that category, and they might want to know kind of what the process or the procedure is like to actually get the vaccine.
Okay, maybe Dr. Bradley will be able to explain a little bit better on that. But one of the things that is very important is that people who have a lot of these comorbidities, it's best that you get the vaccine, because it will protect you better, because you are more at a higher risk to become severely ill if you're exposed to the COVID-19.
Yep.
All right. And so maybe Dr. Bradley, you can explain a little bit more on that.
Yeah, what I do know is, based on the press conference that was held on Monday, is that the Ministry of Health and Wellness will be informing us on how people can get the vaccine based on an appointment system. So I guess they'll be doing the rollout of that information shortly after getting through the first phase of the healthcare workers.
Okay. All right. Well, it's lovely to see you all. We've gotten a chance to talk to you quite a few times about Nurse Bowman, your COVID experience, and then talking about the work that you've been doing at KHMH. And while we have focused for so long looking at the number of patients and lives lost tragically to COVID-19, we do know that the team there at KHMH have worked very hard in the past year and have helped many patients, hundreds of patients, recover. And now you'll be able to do so even more safely when you complete your vaccination schedule. Thank you for the work that you do, and please continue to be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And with that, we are going to be taking our final break for this morning. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so please stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking, and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Why, Tony?
Why, kid, what you going on, man?
We actually come see we can need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups from my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just ran out to the last batch, must be about like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? What is going on?
Check this, right? That's a new law we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
Es un hecho que puedes obtener servicios ilimitados con Smart. ¿Cansado de que se corte la línea cuando más necesitas estar conectado? Es un hecho que cuando te suscribes al plan de Smart Plus, obtienes llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Y también es un hecho que te puedes suscribir con un grupo de 5 miembros al plan Smart Share y hasta 40 miembros al plan Smart Enterprise para llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Smart tiene los verdaderos planes ilimitados. Es un hecho. Sé Smart y vive de forma Smart.
And we're back.
And we're just wrapping up our show this morning. Of course, we were speaking a lot about yesterday's events in the first, or in the first two segments of our show. We started off this morning with an interview with the newly re-elected mayor of Belize City, Mayor Wagner. So we want to thank him for coming in, waking up early after that victory last night, which I'm sure wasn't very easy. But he came in and spoke a little bit about yesterday's events and also about some of his plans for Belize City in the future.
And we also want to thank Brighton for coming back today for the early morning shift and looking at some of the voter turnouts, showing us some of the trends there as well. The final numbers are still being tallied, and we'll have that in our newscast tonight, and we'll have some updates on our Facebook. But what is clear is that the majority of the councils are now going to be PUP-led, with the exception of one where there's a mixed council. We'll have the exact numbers and even more from yesterday's events in our newscast at 6 p.m. tonight.
And we closed off our show with a conversation with two of the veteran frontline healthcare workers at the Carl T. Sherman Memorial Hospital. We spoke with Dr. Eric Bradley and Nurse Casilda Bowman, who both have already received the COVID-19 vaccine. And they both Nurse Bowman and Dr. Bradley work in the COVID-19 unit at the KHMH. And I think that was a very encouraging note to close the show on, knowing that one, the vaccine is here, people are taking it, and we hope that you as viewers continue to follow the advice of doctors and scientists, and especially if you're at risk, you should go out and take the vaccine, because it is not only protecting you, as Nurse Bowman said, you're also protecting others from getting infected, which has been a hugely important thing from the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right. And with that, we want to say thank you for tuning in this morning. And remember, if you have anything you'd like to share with us, just send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com.
You can find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OIE Belize.
And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your heart open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.